Her life didn't need to be taken at such a young age. I love her so much. I'm going to miss her so much.
Tonight, a community comes together with a vigil for a 14-year-old who was killed in Winnipeg.
It's unusual these days not to find a First Nations newspaper that has not been targeted in some way.
And a suspicious fire at a Six Nations newspaper is under investigation.
Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward.
And I'm Melissa Ridgen. The family of a young First Nations girl is in mourning after a house party turned deadly over the weekend in Winnipeg. As Brittany Hobson shows us, the community is coming together to honor the young girl's life.
Drumming filled the cold Winnipeg air as dozens braved the early signs of winter to pay tribute to a young girl taken too soon. Jakira Eastman Moore was stabbed at a house party on October 26th. The 14-year-old was transported to hospital where she later died.
She was a nice girl. Her life didn't need to be taken at such a young age. I love her so much. I'm going to miss her so much.
Laureen Sanderson is Jakira's aunt. Much of the family is still in shock and have declined to speak with media. But Sanderson took some time to share memories of her niece.
She was happy, outgoing. She was always wanted to come home, powwow time. She was a happy little girl.
A vigil was held outside the home where the party took place. Alea McIver helped organize the gathering.
This young girl was loved. As you can see, the community come together and show and amplify what love is for each of our women that continuously go missing and are murdered.
Police were called to the home around 10:45 p.m. When they arrived, they found Jakira and an unidentified 18-year-old female suffering from stab wounds. The 18-year-old survived. In a statement released Tuesday, police said investigators believe that a dispute during a party at the residence escalated to a physical altercation. McIver says the issue of missing and murdered extends beyond the family. It's a community issue as well.
All we can do is wrap this family around with nothing but love through the duration and the process.
Police announced on Tuesday that they charged two females, a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, with second-degree murder. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It is election season in Nunavut. In addition to last week's federal election, this week had Nunavut deciding on municipal councils, mayors, and district education authorities. Our Kent Driscoll joins us from our Iqaluit Bureau. Kent, what happened this week in the Nunavut municipal elections?
Thanks. And this week's municipal elections in Nunavut had some people waiting overnight for results and some elections delayed by even a day. Voters in Rankin Inlet, Whale Cove, Chesterfield Inlet, and Baker Lake had their voting delayed by 24 hours for the most Nunavut of reasons: bad weather. A power outage in Rankin Inlet was overcome by Elections Nunavut staff using a generator and running as little as they could. Now, Rankin Inlet, that's the home to Elections Nunavut, so a failure there could have hurt the entire territory. As usual, everything in Nunavut is connected, and these municipal elections are no different. The government of Nunavut's been in an extended argument with the Inuit organizations about language of instruction in schools and the power of local district education authorities. There were no elections for district education authorities, basically local school boards, in Arctic Bay, Clyde River, and Qikitarjuaq, due to no candidates stepping forward to run for the seats. Now, that's going to have to take some of the wind out of the sails of the Inuit organizations who are pushing for even more local control of school content. Here in Iqaluit, the municipal election brought change, but also some faces that may be familiar to our viewers. 6 of the 8 positions on Iqaluit City Council were filled by Inuit. The biggest vote getter, Janet Pitsulak Brewster. Now, Janet led all candidates with over 900 ballots cast for her. You've seen her on the show through her work with the Nunavut Arts and Crafts Association and through her testimony at the MMIWG inquiry. Another new face, Sheila Flaherty, a local entrepreneur and chef. You might best recognize her from when she competed on Top Chef Canada. And of course, It wouldn't be a Nunavut election without one incredibly close call. This one was in Pond Inlet, Nunavut, for the mayoral race. Joshua Ariak defeated Tim Enavia-Pixusi 77 to 76, a one-vote difference. That one is going to recount, as is required under Nunavut's Election Act. So, as you can see, there was a little bit of everything in this Nunavut municipal election, from weather to close calls. Back to you in Winnipeg.
Thanks to Kent. We want to hear what you think. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. Construction has begun on a 1,600-kilometer transmission line that will connect 17 First Nations to electric power. Wataynikaneyap Power is a transmission line company owned by 24 First Nations in Northern Ontario. In Thunder Bay Tuesday, it was announced a notice to proceed with the billion-dollar project. In 2018, the federal government announced its investment to connect the First Nations to Ontario's power grid. It will put an end to the diesel-generated power that leaders say is dirty and unsafe. Watay Power awarded the contract to Ballard LP, and construction on the line is expected to be complete in 2023.
Police and fire services are investigating a suspicious fire at a newspaper in Six Nations of the Grand River this week. Early Monday morning, fire officials were called to the scene where the fire from a burning truck outside the news agency had spread to the building itself. Turtle Island News lost some of its assets in the blaze. Publisher Linda Paula says she was told the fire appeared to have been a targeted attack. Police are investigating and have not yet laid any charges.
It's unusual these days not to find a First Nations newspaper that has not been targeted in some way over the years. I've talked to publishers from right across the country in our communities, some of whom have shut down as a result of violence against them. So this is not unusual. Obviously, someone disagreed with the newspaper and disagreed with what we do here. And what we do here is just provide the facts. That's it.
A First Nation in British Columbia has signed off on a billion-dollar deal that will see a liquid natural gas facility built just half an hour from Vancouver. But as Tina House reports, the deal has some sports enthusiasts and some band members literally climbing the walls.
The area around Squamish, BC is surrounded by towering mountains and located on the Howe Sound. The area was once plagued by industrial pollution, but since mines like Britannia have closed down, pods of orca whales have since returned, signifying a healthy ocean and environment. In 2016, Woodfibre LNG started planning to turn this former pulp mill into a liquid natural gas facility. Once completed, 2 tankers would carry the liquid gas to Asian markets twice every day. The project was green-lighted by the Squamish Nation and the BC government last March. A $1.1 billion deal was struck between the Squamish Nation, Woodfibre LNG, and Fortis BC. On the Squamish Reserve, elders from the community are getting together for their weekly gathering. That's where we met 86-year-old Robert Daniel Baker, Kawale. Kawale is not happy with the LNG facility in his backyard.
It's pretty dangerous for being that close to it. You know, if that thing ever goes up, there'll be no more people living here. And I told him, you got to put, money don't mean nothing to us. The land is our land. We were here a long, long time ago.
Oreen Askew is a Squamish Nation Council member. She says she understands there are concerns, but she is confident in the deal.
We're going to make sure that LNG and BC Hydro and the province are committing to what they said they're going to do, and that they do it in a proper manner.
And another part of that commitment is the return of 9 parcels of land to the Squamish Nation. It includes parts of the Mirren Provincial Park. Just off the Sea to Sky Highway, it features a lake dense forest with hiking trails, and many cliffs popular with rock climbing enthusiasts. The rock climbers aren't happy either. They say they should have been consulted. Part of one letter reads, "Had climbers been consulted, it is likely that a lobbying effort would have been made to request pet walls exclusion from the transfer parcel in addition to the provincial park." Squamish Nation member Beebe has an opinion about the climbers.
The climbers, no, they don't need to be consulted. We were not consulted, so why should they be consulted?
I think people just need to understand that it already used to belong to us, so I think it's moving forward and in a good way to receive our land back.
The Squamish Nation says they currently don't have any plans to develop the former park area. Tina House, APTN National News, Squamish.
We've got highlights from today's In Focus about tricksters, shapeshifters, and other Indigenous legends.
That's coming up after the break, but first, here's tomorrow's weather. Starting on the East Coast, 16 and showers for Halifax, 11 under sunny skies for St. John's, sunny and 3 for Nain, +5 with snow for Happy Valley Goose Bay, showers and 16 in Montreal, 2 with snow for Chibougamau and Val d'Or, 13 with showers for Toronto, rain, and 15 in Ottawa, +1 under sunny skies for Thunder Bay and Wawa, -3 with snow in Churchill, -2 with snow for Puckatawagan, +2 with snow in Winnipeg, Gimli, Brandon, and Dauphin. Partly cloudy and +2 for Saskatoon, Regina, and Estevan. +2 with snow in Meadow Lake, 0 and snow in Buffalo Narrows. Welcome back. Cape Dorset Nunavut is known all over the world for their famous prints. And every year, Dorset artists put out another collection. Our Kent Driscoll went behind the process and found out for every artist and every print, there is a team at work. Here's an encore presentation of that story from Cape Dorset.
Here in Cape Dorset, the land inspires the art. You can't separate the work from the community. This is the 59th year Cape Dorset has released a print collection. But what you might not know, just how many artists it takes to make one print like this. Samayu Akasuk started drawing in 2011, and she's had 2 solo exhibitions since. This is her work. She works at the elementary school during the day, but the art is always on her mind.
I always think about what I'm going to create. My mind never stops sometimes. I'm like, what am I going to create? How can I make it like different and whatnot?
The art is then sent over here to the stone cutters. Not all Dorset prints are done on stone. There's also lithographs and aluminum printing. But this is the classic Dorset style. The art is traced on that stone slab and chiseled out by hand. One finished stone cut takes about a week. Over here is where the actual printing takes place, and it's just as complicated as all the other steps. Niviksi here has been working at the studio since a high school job placement. Today, he's working with an aluminum print. That's an etching of this, baleen, basically the teeth of a whale.
It's aluminum plate drawn by Suganasuna. Right now we start using more aluminum plate compared to in the past I used to use more stone.
He carefully mixes the ink, cleans off the etching, and gets just the right amount of ink for a test run, all the while making sure it is just the right color and texture, because these fine details matter. This is just a practice printing a newsprint. When he has it perfect, he'll put it on paper. Nothing less than perfect for the collection.
Sometimes if you start working, it looks easy, but I can't work on it. Oh, that's working off, a lot of work.
And this is the end result, world-famous Cape Dorset prints. What you're seeing right now is the 2018 collection. Each print is only printed 50 times, then shipped around the world. Tomorrow, we'll take you to the premiere of the 2018 collection and have a look at what the hard studio work turns into. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Cape Dorset.
On today's edition of In Focus, we discussed Indigenous mythologies and legends from across the nations, tricksters, shapeshifters, and little people, and entities that rule the ocean, and of course, visits from those not even of this world. Here's some of what we discussed.
When I think of the stories of little people, I think of things. I had a story that came out of Island Lake in the 1960s, for example, where some of the local children had said that they had met in the bush small men with large heads and long arms who gave them what they described as chewing gum to eat. They could chew on it all day long and would never lose its flavor. And then later on, some children had disappeared for days on end, and they said, "Oh, yeah, I was spending time in the bush with the little people," and it got many of the parents and the elders very upset because what was going on here, and a lot of these stories kept on being repeated and repeated, and when you hear those types of things, that suggests there is something going on, but we don't know exactly what it was. And here we have a video of a small black something or other, as opposed to somebody who actually sees a creature with heads and arms and that type of thing.
Yeah, and has an interaction with it.
Yes, this is a sculpture. The figure on the left is Kalupaluk, and you'll see that Kalupaluk has snatched a child from the water, and if children would venture to the flow edge, they were in great danger of being snatched up by Kalupaluk, and she would put them in her hood, in her amauti, and take them away.
In the West here, we call this entity Kalujak, and that is second in command to Aquaxaluk, who is the great bosses of the ocean. And these are kind of spiritual beliefs that we had with our people since then. They're very old beliefs. Kalujak was a very powerful creature that had command of all life in the ocean, the whales, the seals, the fish, anything alive there, and had the power to send them to places where people may have been, in danger of starvation or need some oil for themselves. So Kalujak will send a bunch of seals to their location and sacrifice themselves, so it would save people. So from that perspective, they are in our mythology. But through time, as parents, when we are calling children to come back in when the darkness returns to the Arctic, and come on in, get inside, stop playing outside. And, it's very difficult to make kids to do that.
There's lots of good stuff in there. On there, you can check out the full episode on our APTN News website, aptnnews.ca.
And I missed it. I'm going to check it out myself. Health officials say the best way to protect yourself from getting the flu is to get the flu shot, especially if you're a high-risk population like children, the elderly, and people with compromised immune systems. Pregnant women are also at risk. Manitoba Kuwaitanawi Okimakanak is encouraging people to get vaccinated. CTV's Michelle Gerwing reports.
Elder Joshua Morris has more than just one reason to get the flu shot.
They promised me a lollipop.
Joking aside, the 68-year-old, originally from Split Lake, says he gets the seasonal vaccine every year.
I've been diabetic for so long already, so my immune system's almost gone. Yeah.
He and MKO Grand Chief Garrison Settee are encouraging all Northern First Nations members to do the same.
And it is very safe. It's safer than getting sick. It's safer than going through all kinds of problems. So being proactive is very important.
Chief Provincial Public Health Officer Dr. Brent Rusin says Indigenous people are at a higher risk for serious illness, and there are higher rates of flu and higher complications due to flu in First Nations communities.
When we look at higher risk groups, we look at individuals with chronic medical conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, renal disease, and we know that in Indigenous communities we do see higher prevalence of some of these conditions.
Rusin says the overall flu vaccination rate rate in Manitoba is typically around 23 to 24%, and in many but not all Indigenous communities that rate is lower. He adds most people coming to hospitals with flu-like symptoms are not vaccinated.
And so we really look to reduce the strain on the healthcare, reduce the burden on individuals, on families and communities by getting high rates of the flu vaccine uptake.
Rusin says because they're a priority group, Indigenous communities are among the first to get shipments of the vaccine every year.
The flu shot protects you and everyone around you.
Morris says many people have the same reason for not getting immunized.
I don't know why they're scared to get a flu shot, and that's why they don't want to go. But I encourage them to go have a flu shot at least once a year, every year.
Michelle Gerwing, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Get your flu shot yet?
No, it's on my agenda.
Mine too. We've got to take another quick break, but there's more news ahead.
But first, here's the rest of tomorrow's weather forecast.
Picking back up in northern Alberta, +4 with snow for high level, flurries in 3 in Fort McMurray. Snow and +4 in Medicine Hat, +2 with flurries for Lethbridge. Sunny and 10 in Victoria, 10 with showers for Vancouver. Sunny and +6 for Fort Nelson, +4 and showers in Prince George. -4 for Old Crow and Beaver Creek, +1 in Whitehorse. 7 above for Fort Liard and Trout Lake, -2 in Yellowknife. -7 for Sax Harbor, 11 below for Colville Lake. -5 with snow for Chesterfield and Baker Lake, 1 below in Cambridge Bay. -9 with snow for Resolute, -2 in Clyde River.
Welcome back. It's quite a sight to see giant pumpkins, but quite another when a massive gourd is turned into a boat. Watch this. A Tennessee farmer decided to have some fun with this enormous pumpkin, carving it out so he can ride it on a pond. The pumpkin was more than 410 kilos before it was carved.
If you're looking to get spooked this Halloween, here's a haunted house that might be up your alley. This is Potter's House of Horrors in Surrey, BC. It's 15,000 square feet of heart-pounding jumps and scares. It's so creepy, in fact, they have an emergency exit every 20 feet. And a lot of clowns.
That was a lot of clowns. I saw a lot of clowns this past weekend, too. Terror on 12, if you're around Winnipeg, do it next year. It's cool.
Clowns can be creepy.
Yes.
That's your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca.
And for a Halloween encore presentation of that in focus that we discussed tricksters and shapeshifters, you can tune in tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And tag APTN News on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with pictures of your little ghouls and boils dressed up tomorrow. We'll try to get some of them on the news tomorrow night.
We leave you tonight with Camden Wade from Frog Lake, Alberta, playing on his drum gifted to him by his uncle and cousin. His mother, Terry Wade, says the 18-month-old takes every chance he has to sing and drum. Have a good night.
Bye.